One other thing that you might want to do, if you'll notice my hand's starting to get a little messy here because I'm moving my hand into the drawing here. Take a piece of paper and rest your hand on the paper instead. Obviously it's kind of a drag because I'm covering up a lot of the drawing when I'm doing this, so the viewers who are watching this, yes, there is a drawing under here. I'm just protecting not only the drawing itself, but also my hand from getting all that stuff on it, all the graphite from the pencil. Here again is where you can vary some of the line thicknesses. I'm going to do a thinner line on the bone that's behind this part of his wrist, or excuse me, this part of his forearm. The other thing, obviously, that you can do here instead of using this piece of paper is you can rotate your paper. So I know that sounds like a very silly suggestion, but just rotate the paper around and then my hand's resting again on a clean part of the paper here. When I do these demos in class, a lot of times students will ask questions, thankfully, the ones who are paying attention, will ask questions right in the middle of something, and I'll stop and point out various things that we're doing and things that I'm looking for in the drawing. The main thing that I'm looking for in this drawing is that it was constructed. So I instruct my kids constantly to not erase. And whenever I hear erasing going on, I will stop the lecture right in the middle of the drawing and say, "Excuse me, please don't erase. If you erase, I can't see your mistakes and I can't help you with your drawing. And I want to make sure that you're not just copying what I'm doing, but you're actually drawing." I was hoping to get another video in today, but for the final, for a lot of students missed a couple of classes this week. I'll have to do that one tomorrow and post it tomorrow, because a buddy of mine called me up and said, "Hey, got a couple of tickets to the Aztec basketball game, and since we're in March now and March Madness is going to be coming up, I'm going to be going to the San Diego State Aztec game tonight. I don't even know who they're playing. It kind of doesn't matter. It's a free ticket and it's time with my buddy Roger." So once again, shout out to Roger. Thank you very much. I'll be seeing you in about 20 minutes to a half an hour as soon as I finish this and post it on YouTube and on Google Classroom. For you teachers out there, if you're not using Google Classroom, I strongly suggest you use it. It has a lot of really cool features, and if you have a doc cam in your classroom like this, on the back side of the doc cam there's a place to put an SD card, and you can actually record using the SD card right on your desktop. Whether you're an art teacher, math teacher, whatever you do, any sort of lecture that you do where you use an overhead, or used to use an overhead projector. Jeepers, that's not dating me much, is it? Anytime you used to use an overhead projector, you can now record your lessons using the doc cam. We have the Promethean board is the name of the system that we're using here at San Diego City Schools, and some of the software features, it actually has a screencasting software built right into it. But this particular doc cam, it's not a great super high quality one, but it, as you can tell from the video, it actually does just a fine job for what we're doing here. As a relatively new teacher, as I said before, or probably in a previous video, I was a graphic designer for 20 years, and then when I turned 44, I was between contracts, did a lot of freelance work. I worked for a lot of companies. When I was between contracts one year, I had recently turned 44 years old and decided to go back to school to get my teaching credential so that I could teach art in high schools and, in this case, junior high. So you'll hear me a lot in my videos talk about the educational system and best practices and so forth, and using the Promethean board is probably one of the best things that you can do, and a lot of you younger teachers probably already know that. At some point, because I've been asked several times from various teachers, I will probably do some demos on various software interfacing with the Promethean board. Whatever competitors, because again, I don't really, not really familiar with a lot of the other companies. I've only been introduced to the Promethean board in the last couple of years, last 10 years I should say, and I really like their system. Ties into virtually any laptop so far, including the Macintosh, and really interfaces well. So there goes another shout out. Sure hope I can start getting sponsorship money. Wouldn't that be cool? By the way, one of the things that I use as a standard disclaimer is that sometimes I say very goofy things. I'm known in my family as being a punster. In fact, for 2 years, my first 2 years at this school that I'm working at now, after having homeroom with my 6th graders, at the end of the school year they asked, hey, can we have a pun club next year? And I was like, yeah, let's have a pun club next year. So for 2 years, mostly young ladies, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, would come in at lunchtime, and we would either look online for puns that we do or ones that came up in conversation that week. As I was saying, I went back to school when I was in my mid-40s, early to mid-40s, and it took me 6 years to get through school because I was taking it at night and on weekends and also in between contracts. So from 2003 to 2005 I did all my student teaching, or all my, classroom teaching. Then I got a contract with a public relations firm for 3 years, so I stopped going to school during that time. And then I went back to school after I got laid off from that job and returned to teaching, did my student teaching. And I am now, as I said, 59 years old, and I'm just into my 4th year of teaching here. So a little bit of biography going on as I'm doing the finishing touches on this character. Not that it necessarily matters, but I don't really like dead air, as they say. I don't like empty silence. So I fill it in with that kind of stuff. Hope you'll bear with me, and if there's any information you want else, feel free to comment. As they always say, hit the subscribe button and leave your comments. I don't have any other sage words of wisdom as far as that goes, but I think it's comical how often people say that. I am not necessarily in this to build a following, but it would be kind of cool. So if you have anything you want, questions asked. I have no idea what kind of pencil this is. It says Graphic Gear 800 Pentel. It's a 7mm. One of my students actually left this in the classroom, and as many times as I've asked them to, no one's claimed it, so that's the one I'm drawing with. So that's what the finished character looks like. In the next video, which is really not part of this series, I'm going to draw a stick figure that my students are supposed to take these features and add them to that stick figure, changing the position of this character, and that will be your I actually did it as a pop quiz in class, so that'll be their final for this particular segment of drawings.